welcome to Paranormal Verses with myself, Kell Ridley, and my co-host Michael Kopf, and special co-host Matt Atkinson. We have a really interesting show tonight, and we have Mark Sargent on the show, who's a huge influence in the Flat Earth movement. And I've been looking forward to this show for absolutely ages, so that's why I've got a huge smile on my face tonight. But apart from that, I just wanted to say, hope everybody had a safe and brilliant Halloween. And so we're going to introduce Mark and let him tell you a bit about yourself anyway. Over to you, Mark.
Okay. My name is Mark Sargent. I'm an American. Obviously, I live over north of Seattle on the west coast of the United States. And I am officially a Flat Earth recruiter. I am not a king or president or duke or bishop or anything like that. All I did was I helped create the metaphorical Flat Earth 101 doctrine back in 2015. Put it out on the internet with all my contact information, because that's exactly what you want to do when you're on the internet, and let people call me and write me and get, drive up to the house and stuff. And that started a snowball of things that 8 years later I never thought would have happened. 3 books, a Netflix documentary, endorsements. I lost count of how many interviews. I lost count of how many meetups, definitely meetups and conferences. Before the pandemic, we had done conferences, I think, in 7 or 8 different countries, which was amazing. And I just got back from the big one in Las Vegas, Nevada, just last week, where I opened and I helped MC, and it was a lot of fun. And so, yeah, Flat Earth, that's what I do 24/7.
So, how old were you when you first started thinking that the Earth was flat?
I was 9. No, I was not 9. I was 46. I was 46 and living in Boulder, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I never got married or had kids, for better or worse. And so I had a lot of free time on my hands, and I'm older, so I had a chance. I was there when the internet was brand new and followed the internet, to where you could finish it. And then it exploded and went down a whole bunch of different rabbit holes. I have an opinion on just about every conspiracy you can think of, probably even things you can't talk about here.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2014, I started looking into Flat Earth because, well, I'm not getting any younger, so why the hell not? And 9 months later, I'm just banging my head on the keyboard going, why can't I prove this? Why can't the globe? Why can't I prove the globe? Nobody gets into Flat Earth because they love Flat Earth. Nobody. Everybody gets in because it's like, oh, I'll try to debunk it. That's one of the t-shirts.
Yeah.
And February 2015 created Flat Earth Clues, which was the most amateur video production I think ever. I didn't know how to edit anything. I mean, I literally had to download like Windows Movie Maker Live and like just cobble this together and narrate it myself and write it. And yeah, so that's how I got into it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I've got a question for you as well, Mark.
I don't think so. No question.
No. I think most people that know about the flat Earth that are watching this know the basic principle of what the flat Earth could be. Do you think there could be other multiple worlds on this plane that we live on? Now, the reason I say that, you've got people that, there's people out there that believe in aliens and alien worlds and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But if we go down the whole flat Earth thing and think that, right, we're living on one huge plane,
right?
Do you think there could be other worlds on the same plane that we're on?
Oh God, I hope so.
Could hold alien life, that kind of thing.
Like beyond the wall type of thing.
Beyond the wall, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Why? In fact, if you're going to make one snow globe, and for those people that are listening that don't know what we're talking about, we're talking about a world that's basically encapsulated, basically an enclosed world. I don't know what other comparison I could do other than snow globe. Other people have said like shallow sports stadium. Other people, I even had one person say like a pizza box. It's like, okay, well, I know where your audience is at. So, but if there was one snow globe, why wouldn't there be others? This is not a one-off. And I'm a big believer not only in dualism, but the macro micro whole thing, which is if it from my standpoint, it doesn't appear that we're even the first people to rent this apartment. Meaning, not only was this place built, but I don't think it was built just for us. Look at the sunken cities off of Japan, the sunken cities off of India, Bimini Road, the Bosnian pyramids, the real pyramids, Machu Picchu, Pumapunku, and all the other places the ancient aliens ever were at. I mean, those are civilizations that were there a long time before us. Our broken history only goes back 5,000 years. I bring that up because if we're not even a one-off inside of here, why would there be a one-off outside of here? I mean, if you're God, and I'm not trying to disparage God in any way, or at least an advanced civilization much older and more powerful than ourselves, why wouldn't you have multiple worlds out here? And I don't think that really conflicts with the whole ideology of, people say, oh, like the Twilight Zone episode. So it's like, oh, there's people in Mars and Venus and Jupiter. It's like, well, well, I believe in other worlds, but I just don't think they're up there. I think they're just on the same plane with us. So yeah, sure, why not? If you were God, why wouldn't you have a whole bunch of these things on a table somewhere in various stages of development? And then makes it way more interesting. And I'll throw one more into this. I would even have, if it was me, again, I'm not trying to say that I could, put myself in the mind of God, but I would even put a subcontractor, like a small g, deity on each one, which would be randomly developed on each one. So make it even more random. I'm a big believer that novelty is one of the fuels of this universe, and God needs it, like we do. Anyway,
yeah,
ramble. Please pull me back if I go too far off into the weeds. Michael,
No.
Hey, Michael, seriously, settle down. You're just too much of a chatterbox right now. I can't get a word in. But go ahead.
Yeah, he's just taking it all in.
That's okay.
I'm watching chat groups and looking.
Oh,
for
okay. Then yeah, I'm not worried about you.
I mean, like, as you call it, rambling, you can ramble as much as I be like hearing this, so
okay,
go for it.
Okay.
Believe me, we ramble a lot, so you're in good company.
Yeah, but I get paid to ramble, so don't worry. I mean, I go off into the freaking weeds, and my mind is like a bag of cats sometimes. So anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's the most interesting. People are usually like that anyway. So
cool.
What's your view, Mark, on these missing planes, like the MH, whatever it was, a few years ago?
Oh, yeah.
They still haven't found any wreckage for. Do you think these planes might have passed over the wall and they're somewhere else now?
Not over.
A possibility?
No, not over the wall, but they fell into one of the dead zones, which is and for those of you who don't know what we're talking about here, the GPS system, which was announced by the United States military back in the 90s, it's a Department of Defense system, which basically says that there's 32 overlapping, I think it's 32 overlapping blanket covered satellites that are surrounding the whole Earth, and it can track anything. And I never thought that was real. We like the United States, power perceived is power achieved. So I think it's the old LORAN system, LORAN, which is a ground-based radar system. They just slapped another sticker on it and then augmented it with cell phone towers wherever they could, and then added some more radars on small islands. But what happens is, and there was a guy in UK that sent me the tip to that clue that I made in the original clues, which was when you get over the ocean and there isn't an island within 200 miles in any direction of you, your latitude and longitude blanks out. It goes into dashes, basically. It goes into approximated or estimated mode, which means they know approximately where you are, and they can kind of estimate where you're going to be. But if you fell into the ocean right in that point, they don't know. They absolutely don't know for sure. And it happens mostly in the southern hemisphere, if you're looking on a globe, which is anywhere between South America and Africa, or Africa and Australia and places like that. Yeah. And luckily for us, there's lots of islands, but there are dead zones, especially in the South Pacific and the South Atlantic, and even in the South Indian Ocean, where the MH flights went down. And of course, that really, I'm up in an area where they, the Boeing factory is only like 10 miles from here. the big one. And it's like, look, those were 777s, right? That's flagship, right? Those are planes with huge amounts of redundancy. If those planes go down, there's a big problem. And I remember people coming to me even before those flights went down, and they say, "Oh yeah, the dead zones just aren't in the southern hemisphere as well." I'll give you a great example. I love the internet hive mind. They miss nothing, which is they said when you go from like California to Hawaii, if you ever know anyone that takes that trip, there are no islands between California and Hawaii, none. So when you get off of the coast of California, you fall into a dead zone, and it's like, wow, it's amazing we haven't lost. But again, it works out, because all the plane has to do is keep its heading and speed, and eventually, once they get close to land, the radar on the other end picks them up, and they're like, oh, okay. Then they make a slight course correction, and they're fine. Nobody questions it. The pilots are like, the pilots have told me many times, it's like, yeah, for the most part, we just like, getting from point A to point B without crashing. All their observations just go out the window. Which is why most of them, have never ever noticed, the fact that the headings look really weird, which we can talk about our emergency landings if you want. Most pilots are really scared about job security. They won't even, if a UFO even comes remotely, which they joked about in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was, that movie opened with like near misses to planes. And they asked the pilots, like, you want to make an official report? And like all of them, like, yeah, no, we're not doing an official report.
Yeah.
If you will go on record, you're on record. And the notable pilots over the years have gotten fired just for even saying the word UFO.
Wow.
So yeah, you say the word flat Earth and you're a pilot. There was a lady from KLM that's does stuff. Multiple people have interviewed her, where she believes she's one of ours, and she got benched. She didn't get fired, but she's not going on a plane anymore.
Wow.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I've seen things on like different social medias and that about a pilot. He actually got his camera out and started filming that the sun was actually below the horizon.
Right.
So things like that.
Yeah, there's weird atmospheric anomalies that we can't even explain, other than, and I don't want to get into this too much, depending on where you guys want to go, which is it for me. Let's cut to some of the chase here. If we are living in some sort of enclosed world and it's flat, it's probably virtual. Mm-hmm. And if it's virtual, well, then all bets are off, because anything optically can be done. I mean, absolutely anything is possible. So if there are glitches in the Matrix, the whole black cat thing, oh yeah, sure. Why would they happen with just a stupid black cat? And they're going to happen with everything you can think of. No.
So do you think we're living in a simulation? Do you think we are, or?
I do, but the reason I don't play it up more is because the general population has a hard enough time with flat Earth. Meaning I have to take it down to the lowest common denominator. I mean, don't forget that the Matrix, right? The Matrix movie is 23 years old now. 24 years old. That's ridiculous. Wow. That's a long time. It's a generation and change ago. And most people didn't get it, right? They understood. It's like, oh, wow, cool special effects. Look, he dodged bullets. But it's like, you realize what we're talking about here, right? It was a virtual reality that he was in, and he wasn't even, and he was doing multiple runs through it, which they'd said at the end. It's like, oh yeah, this is like the 7th time I've talked to you, and which meant he'd done this multiple times. But two things, I could spend a whole show on this, but let me boil it down. Two things you should look at when trying to tie this thing to a virtual reality. The first one would be the double slit experiment, which I love so much. It was a famous physics thing that eventually were refined. And the double slit experiment says that, it's the whole, is the cat alive? Is it dead? Wave versus particle. But what it says is, if you're not watching something over there, it's not being fully rendered. So you're looking at me, but whatever's happening in the next room probably is nothing. There's nothing there. It's just math. It's just math. It's just code, right? That hasn't been rendered yet, because why would you draw it? And you say, okay, what does that got to do with anything? It's like, well, because when we started making virtual realities, we started doing that without even, just naturally. So if I don't know if you guys ever play games, but if your character, if you see background stuff, like there's a mountain way off in the distance, your character's never ever going to go there, right?
Yeah.
As a programmer, do you draw the other side of that mountain? Nope. Nope. Why would you? That's a waste of resources. Why would you have somebody even spend time doing that? You just draw the front side of the mountain. That's Hollywood 101, right? That's stagecraft. Where if you ever been to a live stage play, you only show the front, you don't show the back. It's the Truman Show all over again.
Yeah.
So that's the first.
The other thing they like to do too is say, "Warning: you're leaving the play area boundaries. You have to turn back."
Right. Absolutely. Or they'll throw in one of my favorites is negative physics, which is just freaky. Which is if the warning, because kids don't even, they'll just ignore it. It's like, oh, let's see how far I could go. It's like your character will die. It's like, I don't care. They will they'll throw up what's known as like a digital fog that you literally can't see your hand in front of your face. You become so disoriented you don't know where you are, and it's like, oh god, you got to get the hell out of there. The other thing, but it also answers the question which you may or may not have gotten as a child, which is if a tree falls in the forest and you're not there to hear it, does it make a sound, right? And it's like when I was a kid growing up, it's like, wow, it's just I don't even know what to do with that. But now, going through the video game industry, it's like, oh no, there's no tree. Why would there be a tree? We didn't drive. The tree's not even there until you get there. And even then, if you get there fast enough, you can actually see the tree being built. Then we'll cut it down. The other thing, look this up if you get a chance, which is even what you think that's wild. No. The wild stuff is there's a wiki page on it, which is really great, called Neuroscience and Free Will. If you guys have never heard of this, look it up. It goes into predestination, which is what it means. So there were some scientists hooked up, as scientists do, they set people down in front of a computer and stick little electrodes on top of their head. And they say, okay, on your computer, pick a number between 1 and 9. There's going to be a stopwatch thing on the computer, and we're gonna register what's happening in your brain, right? So pick a number between 1 and 9, and then note if there's any gap. If you have any indecision between the time you think of the number and the time you hit the key, right? Normally it's just a half of a second, something like that. But sometimes every once in a while somebody has a change of heart, and it's like, what? Oh no, I meant to hit 6, but I want to hit whatever. So when they did this is where it gets weird, right? So if I say pick a number between 1 and 9, you say 4, right? You hit 4, right? The computer knew you were going to hit a number. Couldn't tell you what number, but it knew you were going to hit a number 8 seconds ago. Before it was even a conscious thought. Meaning it could see your head spinning up the choice to move your hand to hit it 8 seconds before you even thought about the number. You think, well, nothing's faster than human thought. It's like, no. What it's saying is that you made the choice before you even walked into the room. And that goes into, if you remember the Matrix movie, where, and again, people just blew by this one, which was the Oracle was talking to Neo, and he's going, I can't make the choice, between Trinity and everybody else. And she goes, you're not here to make the choice. You've already made it. You're here to understand the choice, why you made the choice, which means, then I'll give you one more analogy really fast, which is, it is possible that you're not living in an interactive virtual reality. You're living in a pre-record, something where you made the choices ahead of time before you got here, and then you blocked the memory. I'll give you a quick, because that saves even more resources. So if you ever know any kids, or if you do it yourself, I'm not going to blame you. I'm not judging, all God's children. But if you've ever watched somebody play a video game on YouTube for an hour or so, right? They're just playing the game and you're watching it. Kids are notorious for that. Kids are so lazy now, they won't even play their own games. They watch other people play games. But what you don't realize is when they're doing this, they're getting almost the same experience as if they played it themselves, except that there's no network going on. There's no massive bank of servers. They're just watching a little MP4 file, little tiny movie, and they're getting almost the same experience. I know this because I've done this every once in a while just to watch. I will catch myself reaching for the mouse. Even though I'm not playing the game, it's like, oh God, what am I doing? It's like, so anyway, there you go. Neuroscience and free will. Look it up. Predestination. I believe it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I got another question for you, Mark. Flat Earth.
What? What?
Right. Okay. Let's say the Earth is flat.
Sure.
Why is there such a conspiracy to hide the fact that it's flat? Why are the powers that be telling everyone that we live on a globe?
This. Yeah, no, I got it. The big why would you? Yeah, it's gonna sound. This is gonna sound like a terrible answer when I first say it, but you'll get it. Which is the reason why they kept it a secret is bad timing. Believe it or not, we didn't even have. If you know anything about our history and our tech, we basically didn't have any decent tech until about 100 years ago. And I mean, come on, we didn't have even the earliest internal combustion engines are what 100 years old, barely. And then pressurized aircraft, not even half a century really for the good stuff. Jets, we just started working on those in the late 50s, early 60s, imitating the Germans. So we didn't even have the technology to find out what this world was until almost 1960. At that point, let's say you're sitting at an Illuminati meeting, right? Big long table, hardly any lights, everybody's smoking for some reason.
Yeah.
And you're saying to yourself, what could go wrong, right? What could go wrong? Remember, it's 1960. Civilization has already been established. Everything's been laid out. Three things would happen really, really big. First would be academically, all universities would have to empty out libraries and put stuff back in because anything with an ology tied to it would have to be rewritten with a new model in mind. And astronomy and astrophysics, I don't know how they even come back. And then the world markets, economically, world markets have to be suspended for a long time because you don't know what it means in the long term. But the big thing is the five major religious houses, which would be Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. You're giving them all leverage simultaneously against science, who has built up their foundation for at least 5 centuries, and you're telling them to show restraint. It's a no-brainer for that meeting. Somebody at the end of the table, it's like, so yeah, we're putting a pin in this. Nobody tell anybody anything. I don't know why it sounded like I was smoking a joint, but you kind of you get my point. They couldn't. Look, I don't blame them. I wouldn't tell the population either. You got to remember that just 13 years earlier, 47, you had Roswell, and that was over here, and Roswell freaked people out, right? That went, and there was no television in 47 over here. It was just radio and newspapers, and the media, the limited media we had, was just losing their minds. It's like flying saucers, oh my god, to where they had to walk it back, and it's like no, weather balloon, everybody pictures, weather balloon, it's fine, and then you bury everything and move it out to a new base in the desert. So no, you can't. It's not what they stand to gain, it's what they stand to lose. And come on, information is power. It's the most powerful currency there is, and it is a short meeting to where you say, look, we can't tell anybody until we can figure out how we can use it to our advantage and keep people from losing it. Just freaking, because it would change everything. It would absolutely change everything in the long term because you're showing people. Sorry, I don't want to drag this out. You're showing people the fence. Meaning something I talked about in the clues, which is I don't know. Do you guys have wildlife preserves out there? Where there's
we have like zoos, that kind of thing.
But you don't have you have limit. We have big tracts of land here where we say we fence it off, and we say, okay, buffalo, you can do whatever you want in there, and people aren't allowed to build in there. We have a lot of land that way. You could put 500 buffalo in a 1,000-acre wildlife preserve. They're not going to care. And like, I got water, I got food. They walk up to the fence, do not care. It's like, turn around. You put a dozen people in that same wildlife preserve, all they're going to care about is the fence. It's all they care about. No one likes to be fenced. It's like, what's the fence there for? Why are we on this side? What's on the other side? Who built the fence? Are they gods? Did we anger the fence people? We should sacrifice things to the fence gods. It's like, get some of those buffalo. And then the whole thing starts over. I mean, it's so... Where was I going with this? Anyway, you kind of get it, right?
Yeah.
You can't tell people this. Well, not until recently, and now we've been. I think we've gone as far as we can go, and so that's why they're kind of letting it out.
Yeah. So, when you were talking about UFOs and that before, where do you think they would come from then?
Oh yeah. Well, for me, again, let me preface this with I was watching UFOs for a long time. You want to see UFOs? You can see UFOs any day you want. All you have to do is grab some night vision binoculars. That's it. 5 power or higher.
Yep.
I think you can buy them on Amazon for like 100 pounds, give or take. They used to be really tough to find, but now you can get them cheap. And somebody told me this. In fact, it was a British guy. He said, "You want to see some weird stuff? Get some night vision. Start going out at night and looking up there." Right? I'm going, okay. So I go out there, and the first night I'm going, and it is. You think the sky is just crawling with satellites, and they're up there, way up there, most of them. It's like, wow, this is really cool and really boring at the same time. I don't want to keep doing this. And then you follow a couple of them, and all of a sudden, I remember one specifically. I was in Colorado, and it just slowed down and just stopped, like it was lost. And it's like, and then like it was like looking up a map, and then hit a hard left and went ballistic at an amazing rate of speed. I'm going, what the hell did I just watch? And that would happen over and over and over again. So, but to answer your question, do I think they're from Mars and Jupiter and Venus? No, I just think they're older versions of us.
Right.
With better tech. You know, our tech is limited, and they will never let us have flying cars. This particular civilization is never going to be allowed that, because if you had flying cars, you know, like the UFOs, that's really what a UFO is. It's a flying freaking car. You'd find out what this place was really, really fast. And so I think that every civilization has their time here, and then kind of like a graduating class, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, and we don't encourage you to come back here either. You know, you go out and do your own life. And so every civilization, once they graduate, they're, you know, they either go subterranean, they go interdimensional. Who knows? Maybe they're allowed access to one of the other snow globes. I wouldn't if it was me. Room here for subterranean civilizations. And again, they're told that, I think there's rules though. Again, look, you guys want to look up some weird, the greatest UFO sighting, which nobody knows about, which I've been preaching for years, is the 1561 Nuremberg event. There's a wiki page on it. It's brilliant, which was a complete violation of the rules. Star Trek Prime Directive applies here. You cannot show up in a golden spaceship and land in London and start taking selfies and signing out autographs. You can't. It would change way too many things. But the 1561 Nuremberg event, thank God, it couldn't even happen today. Was that so? On a beautiful cloudless morning, Nuremberg, Germany, in April 1561, 2 giant, what can only be described as flying aircraft carriers, showed up from either side and just started hammering on each other over the city for a full hour. Right. And to where, again, there's no photography back in 1561, but, you know, sketch artists, that was a thing. So guys came, I mean, an hour, that's a long time. They're drawing everything. The visuals are gorgeous. And, you know, I mean, during breakfast, people are having their toast and Schnitzengluben or whatever they have. And like at the end, they have these wonderful sketches. And then a third faction shows up, a singular black pointy craft. The thing looked basically like a flying weapon, and it flew in between them. Those two take off, and this thing hangs out for a little bit, and this takes off on its own.
Wow.
That raised so many questions for me. It's like, what sort of hierarchy are we looking at here? First is, who are these first 2 factions, right? They must have found some sort of uncovered zone where nobody was watching, so they're fighting over the city. Who was the third faction? Were they the UN? Were they the cops? What the hell? And my final one on that is, what sort of response time is an hour, right? I could shoot a gun out this window right here. There's going to be cops in under 10 minutes, you know, armed SWAT teams. But an hour, you're doing a full military engagement over a city, and an hour later, then somebody shows up. It's just mind blowing to me.
Wow.
Anyway, there you go.
I remember that one now. I think I've seen pictures of that one.
Oh, the drawings are gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. You can look it up on Wiki. It's absolutely freaking gorgeous. And there was even like one of the factions, you know, had crashes in parts of the city. It's like, oh man, if I could go back into time, I would love, you know, because that wreckage was either picked up by the faction themselves or, you know, buried. And they didn't remember, science fiction didn't exist back then. So they thought it was a religious event. You know, why wouldn't you? You know, it's like, why are the angels fighting? What's happening? It's like, no, and they were, you know, 2 distinct factions. One had like wings. They're like call it X-wings if you want, but they did and the others were like saucer or spherical in nature. Just fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, here's one for you, Mark. I mean, everyone watching this knows that you're the face of the flat Earth community, the advocate for the flat Earth.
Sometimes.
What are your views on the whole hollow Earth conspiracy as well?
Hollow Earth.
It kind of goes against the grain of what you're into, but if you
no. I was a huge back when I was doing I was going through every conspiracy I could think of. In the early 2000s, I got into Hollow Earth, believe it or not, and in the mid 2000s, I got into Nibiru. That was a whole nother nightmare. But Hollow Earth took on a whole different tone for me, because when I got into flat Earth, I realized what was possible with engineering a hollow Earth. Meaning, when people think of Hollow Earth, they think of like Admiral Byrd's story, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and they think of like Star Trek, a Dyson sphere, where where the whole core of the Earth is just this giant open space. And people forget that the bulk of our population lives between sea level and a mile up, right? 5,000, 7,000 meters, give or take. That's 95% of our population, because altitude sickness kicks in at about, how many meters? 7,000 feet. So whatever that is in meters. And if that's the case, and commercial airlines cap out at 10 miles up, spy planes, if you believe them, at 20 miles up. So if that's the case, you don't need much of a hollowed out Earth. You could, a cave, even if it was a cave which was 50 miles high by 800 miles long or 400 miles long, that's more than any city we've got. That's way more. I mean, you could absolutely have full blown. In fact, at that point, you're saying, well, who's to say we aren't in a hollow Earth? And then what we're looking at, isn't some sort of projection on, some sort of vault on the inside. So. Yeah, no, I love Hollow Earth. I still think it's absolutely feasible, and it fits in with the previous civilizations, which is that previous civilizations can do just fine with some sort of basement apartment type situation. Yeah, I mean, come on, that's what the military does with deep underground bases all the time. So why wouldn't another civilization be perfectly happy? You can make wonderful accommodations, subterranean, and then again, follow the rules. You can come up on the surface. You want to pick off some drunk guys in a rowboat or some campers or something like that, isolated people that aren't going to believe, the stories are going to be completely not credible. And in fact, they did a Simpsons episode on it a long time ago. But you can't do anything in mass. You can't land in the middle of Dublin. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. You can't break those sort of rules. And I get it. The Prime Directive. I know it's a television show, but come on, it makes sense. It works.
Cool.
Michael, have you got any questions?
I'm still taking all this in, and actually, though, I do have.
Here we go.
One question.
Yes.
So it's sort of a flat Earth, but it's more on the cryptid side.
Where are you, by the way? I don't detect a hint of accent. Where are you?
I'm actually in Texas.
Oh, okay.
But I hide my accent. I do better at hiding it than Kell. I can bring my accent out with soda.
Are you originally from Texas?
No, I'm originally from Chicago.
Oh, all right. Wouldn't have picked that up.
Like I said, I can hide my accent well.
Nice.
But so Bigfoot, I've seen that you're into Bigfoot and everything. So are you of the mind that Bigfoot is living on the inner Earth or another dimension, or is here, we just don't see him?
All right. Okay. First off, and I don't care what, I did not write my own wiki page. I don't write any of my own social media stuff at all. People just do it for me, and I don't try to correct it. It's like, hey, you want to spread weird rumors? Go ahead. When it comes to Bigfoot, there's three things I can mention. First off, if you play games at all, I consider them the equivalent of treasure goblins, which is uncatchable, mythical things. Do I think they're real? Yeah, I do. I really do. But I think they have access to way more special abilities than we do. I'll give you a great example. There was a rancher. I don't know if he was in Texas. I don't think he was. I think he was up like in Montana or Idaho or somewhere. I remember the story of this rancher that had a lever action rifle. He was on horseback. He was right on the edge of the woods, and he had a Bigfoot dead to rights, right in front of him. I mean, from horseback, basically point blank range. And by the time he raised his rifle and fired, it had blinked out. Didn't run, didn't fall into the earth. It just vanished.
Wow.
And I call, I like to call them interdimensional hippies, basically. Long hair. They smell terrible. All the animals don't like to deal with them at all. And no one can catch them. I mean, come on. Even I'm a big believer in stats. And come on, law of averages says we should have found a dead one by now, right? However, I will end with this. You want to look up something, look up what's known as the billy ape, Billy. It is a chimpanzee, 6 feet tall. And if I'm not mistaken, we didn't even find the damn thing until 2015. And in fact, you know what? I'll since you talked about Bigfoot, I'll go the other side of the pond. I'll do the Loch Ness Monster after this because I love that one. So anyway, the billy ape, the reason why we couldn't get them is they were really wary of people. They were really good climbers, really fast, and if they saw a human being anywhere close, they're like gone. They're gone, never ever gonna catch them. The only reason we even knew is because a dead one. Finally, some archaeologists in a village somewhere, the villagers were, kind of looking at it. They dragged it back to camp, and I'll be damned if it wasn't. I mean, it was absolutely authentic, and you can look it up. It's a 6 foot tall chimp, but we didn't even figure it out until 2015. So if you had some sort of primate that was really wary of humans, strong, fast, who knows? Maybe they carry off their dead. I mean, ants do. So why wouldn't these things? Is it possible? Sure. I don't think it's fair that, over in the States, we offered like $1 million reward to hunters that could bag one of these things. And by that, you have to get the head because this thing's weigh like 400 pounds, supposedly. But I'm curious about them. But let me talk about Loch Ness really quick, because we might as well jump there, which is people say, do you think the Loch Ness Monster is real? I go, yeah, I do. You want to know why? I go, the coelacanth fish. That's why. Look up the coelcanth, coelacanth fish. You can click on images. It's a really ugly fish with a whole bunch of extra fins that's been extinct for 70 million years, right? Mm-hmm. We know this because we got the fossil records and the carbon dating. It's, we carbon dated this in 70 million years. Carbon dating, by the way, is absolute sham. Absolute freaking joke. They've carbon dated people, like living, walking people around at 10,000 years. So anyway, the coelacanth fish was extinct. Well, there's a problem because the British Navy found one off the coast of South Africa in 1938. There's a wonderful shot of it, and of course they send the photographs, back to London, and all the scientists is like, no, it's preposterous. No. There's no way. Complete denial. And then they catch another one off of Mozambique, another one out from Madagascar, and then they finally figure out, oh, hey, they're all over Africa. They're swimming all around Africa. And in fact, National Geographic did a special on them years ago.
Yeah.
What's the point? The point is this. And again, it took them a long time. In fact, scientists had to backpedal. They say, well, it's a living fossil. They had to make up terms. It's a living fossil. It's an evolutionary state of stasis, right? So then I come back and I say, is the Loch Ness Monster real? And whoever is on the other side says, well, no. I go, why? Because it's been extinct for like 100 million years. Oh, you mean like that fish over there? That fish, right? Which is absolutely alive and swimming, right? And then I don't mean to poke at scientists, but I gotta say, okay, so you were straight up dead wrong on that. Every scientist in the world would have lost money on this, and they did, right? Everyone lost face on this. That one you're wrong on, but the Loch Ness Monster, oh, you're solid on that, right? That there's no plesiosaur, no aquatic reptiles of any kind survived the cataclysm that killed the reptiles, right? Even though that makes absolute sense, right? We don't see pterodactyls flying around. We don't see T-Rexes walking around, but in lakes and lochs and all this stuff, we see those things all the time. And they're also really smart. They see people are like, nope. They don't want nothing to do with us. So is Nessie real? You bet he is. And whatever children he has. Drain the lake, you'll find it.
I'm just laughing at you saying there's no pterodactyls. We actually have got a friend that's seen one. Isn't that right, Michael?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me backpedal. There are the occasional people that say they've seen pterodactyls. If that is true, absolutely wild and amazing and wonderful. But again, law of averages, the ocean stuff. Come on, we've got ocean stuff that there's something called cryptozoology, which I love the term, which is anything that isn't dissected on a scientist's table is a myth, right? You know, the giant panda, a myth. Giant anaconda, a myth. The giant squid, which they still have never gotten a full size. You're never going to catch one of those things. They're freaking ridiculous. They're they eat great whites. We only figured that out in the last 10 years.
Wow.
Right, super fast. So again, until it shows up in their lab, and I don't blame them. I mean, the giant panda, it seemed ridiculous as a concept, right? Oh, this giant cuddly black and white bear that rolls on its back a lot and eats bamboo and doesn't really do much. That's a thing? No, it can't be. It was. Sorry. Go ahead.
We've got another question coming, haven't we?
Matt is asking, how does Mark explain space and the universe on a flat Earth?
Well, we can go there. Sure. Space is not what you think it is. Meaning you are in a giant planetarium. And I know that dates me because people don't. Do you guys have planetariums over in England?
Yeah, we do.
Good. Oh, good.
There's
here,
one, I believe, in London. Near Madden Tussauds.
Like one. We would, in the States, we would have planetariums to where we'd educate kids on the weekdays, and on the weekends we do like laser shows and people get completely baked, right? And they wouldn't even hide it. It's like, oh, hey, we're gonna do Laser Floyd on Saturday. It's like, oh, great. So if you're in a planetarium, then everything on the ceiling is just a projection. In fact, for me, it's much easier than that. It is everything you see in the sky is just part of a giant ornamental clock system that predates language. That's all it is. It is an illusion that we bought into deliberately. You know, that was part of it. And I'm not saying that God is lazy. I'm saying that God is very, very efficient. If 99.99% of people believe what they see, you know, on the ceiling, you know, as real, then that's what you go with. In fact, even Carl Sagan said it a number of times. He's going, the universe doesn't make a lot of sense in that it is so huge and so empty. Yeah, it's not. We go the other way. It's not huge and it's not empty at all. It's just lights on a freaking ceiling. But let me throw one more in there, which is.
So who made it then? Who built it? Who built the lights on the ceiling? Who put
Elon Musk. No. No, and by the way, if he takes credit for it one day, it would not surprise me because he takes credit for everything. I don't hate a lot of people. I hate him as a media creation. That's like, really, you're going to actually try to pawn him off as a poor man's Tony Stark. Really, that's what you're going to do. He's Iron Man. Really, bunch of crap. So no, who built it? Oh, sorry. One more thing, real quick, to the guy with the question. Which was, think of this. And do you guys have Amish people over there, or is it just here?
No, it's only in America.
Yeah, well,
that's America,
right? So,
they may call them Quakers.
Oh, Quakers. So people communities that
maybe
a community that rejects all technology. They make their own clothes. They drive wagons with horses. We have those over here, where people they're basically living the lives from the mid 1800s, right? They don't do Western medicine or anything like that. Imagine taking an Amish person, blindfolding them, taking him to a planetarium, pulling that blindfold off, and watch what happens to his face. He will freak the hell out. That ties back into, and again, that's just a building, right? That's one of our buildings. So to your question, like, who built it? First off, not us. We had nothing with the building of this place. I'm stealing that line straight out of the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, which was one of the greatest lines because it was so humble at the end, where the aliens are like, yeah, we didn't build it. We don't know who did, but we're just using it, right? So whoever built this place, you can really only go down one of two paths, right? It's either an older civilization more powerful than ourselves, or a deity. But really, you're kind of splitting hairs there, aren't you? Because if a golden spaceship landed in the middle of London right now, two things would happen. One would be all the nerds that would show up and be like, wow, they look like the blue people from Avatar. You know, let's get some selfies, right? And the other group would be like, we must worship the blue people. It's like start building churches immediately, right? That's how it would go. So even if God decides to show up one day, boy, it better be splashy, because if it is not like a big song and dance number in Act 3, you're gonna get critics, which is sad. I hate to say it, but the internet trolls are still, can you imagine that, trolling God? Whatever. So anyway, for me, I think it is. I think it's a deity. Sure, I do. Do I think it's capital G, or do I think it's a small g? I think it's small g. That I think capital G has a lot bigger things to worry about. I think small g's, fragments of him in different aspects do things, and that kind of makes sense for me. Come on, if you follow the Bible at all, didn't the Old Testament kind of read like a temper tantrum in a lot of ways? Kid in a sandbox, just wrecking things. By the way, not accidentally, the holding a dinosaur in each hand, rawr, crash, 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 and then gets better with time. Hopefully I don't get struck down for all what I just said there. Anyway, go on. What else you got?
Well, to piggyback on what you're saying, Mark, it's kind of like talking about Matrix, where the Oracle was saying, we have programs that monitor programs, and there's a program for the birds, there's a program for the lights.
Let me expand on that really quick. That's such a great line. I'm glad you brought that up. That line was not lost on me in the Matrix. It's like, you see those birds? A specific program, right? Had to to govern them. There's a wonderful, you want to look up something cool. It ties into the virtual reality aspect of it, which is called the 100th monkey effect. Love the 100th monkey effect. I love stuff that science discovers and then backpedals from because they regret discovering it. It's like, we didn't do it. So what we did was, because why wouldn't we? We were throwing potatoes to monkeys on islands outside of Japan. And some of the monkeys were realizing that, hey, if you wash the potatoes off in the water, you don't have to eat sand, right? That kind of makes sense. And so slowly but surely, more of these monkeys started learning from the other monkeys, right? They're like, oh, yeah. You get this, water, no sand, good potato. Then something weird happened. When they hit about the 100th monkey, and we don't know exactly, but sure, why not? It's a nice round number. When they hit the 100th monkey, all the monkeys knew it simultaneously. They all learned it. Not just the ones on the beach, but the ones on the other side of the island and the ones on islands that weren't even connected to those islands. They all knew immediately. It was an update, a hot fix, a beneficial update that what we do in software all the time, which is it made sense. It's like, hey, the monkeys seem to get more of this potato sand thing. Let's do a beneficial update, hot fix, roll it out now. And once that happened, and of course now, science like, no, it's a myth. It absolutely did not happen. It's like, of course it did. Well, we pulled that out of our ass. You guys are the ones that figured it out. So yeah. Programs that program for everything. The little things, the big things. I mean, come on. How many little things in nature do we have to observe? You start seeing the patterns. You stare at anything long enough, you figure out the patterns. And that was one of them for me. So.
I could imagine if I was a program like in charge of grass, I would want to commit suicide. Because my job is to sit there and watch grass grow.
Well, I mean,
so small. It's like, really, this is all I'm gonna do for the rest of my life? No. Tiny growth.
You're absolutely right. If indeed, and I am not a big believer in, the Matrix, of course, embellished on it, which is sentient, self-aware. I am when they talked about, in fact, AI, the whole term AI and that crap that's been coming out over the last year. It's just ridiculous for me because look, I used to program, not great, but I used to program back in the day, and I had geek friends that programmed. We were in that biz, right? We loved everything that was programming and everything that was tech. And when I remember discussions we had which was AI true self-aware. All right, now sure, Chat GPT and all that crap. Can you do stuff that's automated, right? Sure. But will my little Roomba vacuum cleaner over there all of a sudden walk up to me one day, roll up to me and start questioning the meaning of life. No, it absolutely will not. And that is because we can't even figure out, and again, I'm telling this from a software person. Any software person wants to challenge it, please do. We can't even figure out the flow chart for how to create self-awareness. The closest you could ever get, and I highly recommend that if you've never seen the movie, The Imitation Game, starring Benedict Cumberbatch, right?
Right.
Where, in fact, it was weird because the title of the movie was wrong, in that it was about Alan Turing, basically the grandfather of computers, and he came up with. He knew when because he created the first computer during World War II, then it was all classified because it was British intelligence. So he came up with what is now the Imitation Game. That's what he called it. Was now called the Turing test. He called the Imitation Game because he realized the closest we could get to actual self-awareness, like making a robot that'll start pondering the meaning of life, is an imitation of it, imitation of ourselves. So yeah, you could program all sorts of wonderful dialogue things, and it can say it, but does it mean it? So, which is why he came up with, which is now known as the Turing test, which is questions that you ask computers to trip them up into if you're not sure you're talking to a computer, there's a series of questions. They're not made in stone. They've evolved over time. You ask them questions and it'll trip you up. In fact, there's forget about the movie, was it Das Mechana? There was the British version called starring Toby Stephens called The Machine. Look that up if you get a chance. The whole movie, the movie opens with him asking a blindfold, like a Siri, like a female voice on the other end, asking it questions to trip it up. He knows he's going to be able to trip it up, but how it responds is his benchmark. How close we got to AI, true AI. Do I think we'll truly hit self-aware? No. That we can get close. We can get to where it can fool you with an imitation, but we can't. We can't even get the voice right. Don't forget the movie Her. They use Scarlett Johansson as the voice, because you can talk to Siri all day long. Siri's not fooling you, right? Siri's not gonna, no one's dating Siri or a version of Siri. Sorry. Again, off into the weeds. What else you got?
Well, let's have a look. Let's go through our list of questions here. I think we've touched on quite a few of them.
So I'm kind of curious, Mark.
I don't think so.
What? With everyone who's like, when we see photos from the shuttles and we see photos from everything, how is it if the Earth is flat? Do all of the photos have the sphere?
Because, I try to be as gentle as I can for you, because NASA is theater. Shakespeare, all the world's a stage. NASA has been pure theater since minute one. And here's the part which you won't hear from a lot of people in my ranks, which was, I don't blame them for doing it. Meaning, they announced in 1959, they created NASA. In 1959, they also announced the Van Allen radiation belts, which simultaneously, and 1959 created, NASA was 58, 59 Van Allen radiation belts, and also 59, they created the Antarctic Treaty, which sealed off the upper edge and the outer edge. You want to look at NASA. Again, that's how everybody starts, which is they lean on NASA. Well, the space program, that has to show us, it's got to be real. And so, dog, look out. So,
those were mine.
so I in fact, I'll throw this at the UK people over here, which is because you're in Texas, Michael, which is here's two quick things, which is, in the United States, we believe in the space program because I think I even have a little American flag here. Rah, wave the flag, right? That's what we do. America's great, wonderful. So, in fact, Dana Perino, you watched Fox News ever?
I used to, but okay. I know who she is.
Dana Perino, great. She was a press secretary for the Bushes before she got on Fox as one of the anchors. And she said, because they were talking about the space program and how, people were saying it was fake. And she goes, I believe in the Apollo program because I'm a patriot. She said that straight to the camera, and I got chills because I'm going, okay, I see what's happening here. Basically, she's saying, whatever the government says, that's what's good for you, right? That don't do what we say, right? It doesn't matter what it is. That's, it's not that we're going to lie to you. We're probably lying to you for a good reason, is what she was basically saying. When I ask people outside the United States why they believe in the space program, in fact, I did a thing in Sweden a couple of years ago, and I asked the audience, I go, hey, why do you believe the Americans went to the moon? You know what the answer was? Because it was on television. And the American media would never lie about something like that. And I could only keep a straight face for like 5 seconds. And I was going, guys, you don't know us at all. We lie about absolutely everything. But to your point, Michael, I'll give you 3 quick things. We won't even talk about the ISS right away. We'll just say the Apollo program. You could go online and look up all sorts of Apollo images. The first thing, they did not age well, and that's because when you hire photographers to shoot actual things, they embellish. They use studio techniques. Mark Twain's quote, which I love so much, which is never let the truth get in the way of a good story, or a good image for that matter, which is when we lie, we're lying because it's a better presentation, right? People, come on, we've all done it to a certain point. You embellish on the story. So when they were shooting the lighting for and setting up the moon photographs on the moon, right? Perfect 4 inches of ash everywhere. There were 3 things, but forget about the stars that weren't in the background. I don't even care. You want to say it's exposure settings, fine. Saying exposure settings, don't care. I don't need it. The one light source. There should be one light source, but camera guys hate using one light source. So they brought in multiple, which meant the shadows were going in different directions, which cannot happen if the sun is 93 million miles away and it's your only light source. Second one would be the blast crater, right? They just set this thing down on perfect 4 inches of ash, and it's a 10,000 foot-pounds of thrust engine, and yet there is no splay pattern. There's no blast crater at all. There should be no ash underneath that craft. And there wasn't a speck of dust moved out of place. But even if you can get past those 2, or the feats of strength, which they should have had because you should be 6 times stronger on the moon, which they didn't want to talk about. My favorite is the spacesuit, which is the spacesuit is basically just a deflated balloon that you get into. And if you're in a vacuum chamber, everybody knows when you're in a vacuum chamber, everything in a vacuum chamber expands if it's loose to the point where it bursts. You can put a soda can in a vacuum chamber, a football, anything in a vacuum chamber, it will explode. The only object that's ever happened to is the spacesuit. Why? And I knew exactly as soon as I saw it, it's like, oh my God, that is brilliant. Again, never let the truth get in the way of a good story, which is somebody at NASA or whatever the think tanks came up with this great idea. It's like, because the early spacesuits were just plastic and metal and they looked like B-movie. They were horrible. But it's like, you have to be that way because you're in a vacuum chamber, right? You can't put a soft suit. Soft suit would just blow up like a balloon. He'd tip over and he'd die, right? And somebody came up with the idea. It's like, no, we'll just use the soft suit. We're not in a vacuum. We'll just put it on television. People will believe it. People will buy it. It's like, why? Because it's on television. And in America, I don't know what it's like over there. In America, the physics club and the math club in any education system are tiny compared to every other club. Band, really, really big. Physics club, really, really small, and nerds that you want to beat up on a regular basis anyway, right? So the nerds just justified. It's like, oh, they must have figured it out somehow. And they just left it. It's like, well, there it is. The spacesuit works. And in fact, that was the challenge I put out to people years ago. I said, you want me to convince me that the world isn't what I think it is? Fine. Loan me a university vacuum chamber. Loan me one of those spacesuits because they all worked. They were all flawless. Nobody's died in a spacesuit, because of a spacesuit accident. Put me in the vacuum chamber, crank the lever, tell me what happens. Tell me how I live. No one will touch that. No one will put me in a vacuum chamber because you can't fake a vacuum chamber. It cannot be faked. Well, if you know what you're doing, it cannot be faked. I mean, tap water boils in a vacuum chamber. A bell doesn't make a sound in a vacuum chamber. I could prove that it's a vacuum chamber or not with like $4 worth of materials. 10 if I buy a really nice bell. Anyway, there you go. So sorry. Short answer, Michael. Absolutely fake from beginning to end. Absolutely fake. And there's nothing. And again, why wouldn't it be? It's the U.S. military most of the time.
Also, if you're talking about the moon and the faking of the moon landings and that, it's like when the shuttle went back up, And it's like, who filmed it? Did they just leave somebody there to film it? And
when the module,
Well, no, they will say that it was remote controlled, and they've said this in different things where they just got lucky. It's like, okay, the capsule lips off and it tilts perfectly to follow it up, and they say, oh, they did that remote control. It's like, yeah, but you have this huge delay, right? And you don't know exactly when that thing's firing off, and it's like, oh, well, we just got lucky with the timing. It's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah,
you did not get lucky. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing, real quick, which is the transmitter. You'll look, and there's this wonderful old school VHF transmitter that's supposedly shooting, beaming back to Earth. It's like, what's powering this thing? Anyone knows anything about transmission? It's like, look, that thing's running off a car battery, right? And this is VHF technology from the 1960s, right? That thing maybe has a 50-mile range with Morse code, and yet that thing's cranking out 10 frames of color video a second and perfect two-way communication. No. We did not have the tech. Absolutely did not have the. Come on, how many people have said, that you've seen the memes where it's like, this phone, I know has more computer power than all of NASA did back in the day, and yet NASA did what they did. Look, I love NASA as a space agency. I think it's a great institution, theoretically, but it's military from minute one. I mean, come on, it was founded. People say, oh, it's not military. I go, fine. They wear white uniforms. They smile for the camera. They don't carry guns. They were founded from the still burning embers of the Nazi war machine. Werner von Braun was the guy, right? Which,
right.
A little hypocritical, by the way, don't you think, that when you're, funny thing in war, if you're really, really smart, there are no war crimes. You're an asset at that point. It's like, nope, we're not shooting you. You're going to work. You're getting a salary. So, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're dumb. Yeah, you're dead. Anyway, go ahead.
That NASA hired from the Air Force, so yeah, it was military.
Yeah.
Through.
But it's brilliant in that it's the face of science. All you have to do is, white uniforms, no guns, clean cut guy, and by the way, all the astronauts are military officers, Air Force officers, right? In fact, I even interviewed one. I did one. Oh God, what was that Piers Morgan show? Was it Good Morning Britain? Was that what he was doing?
He could have been, yeah.
He had one of our astronauts, Terry Virts, standing right next to him, and Piers was trying to get a fight started. Calling me, he's, are you sure you're an American? And he's going, are you calling Terry Virts a liar? And I go, no. I go, Terry Virts is an officer. He's a soldier. He's a full bird colonel in the U.S. military. You don't get to be a colonel without knowing how to keep your mouth shut. I go, man follows orders. I go, he could be a perfectly nice guy, but he's going to do what he's told. And, Terry just kept smiling like the zombie he is. So, whatever.
Nickname is asking a question. She's a good friend of ours. She
Who?
says we can nickname.
That's the name. Is nickname.
That's
nickname.
Yeah, that's her moniker.
Nickname.
All right, that's fine. That's good. I've never heard that.
But she asks, we can see the Earth curvature looking out at sea or from a plane, or what is it that creates this? Thanks.
Perfect. Okay. Neil Tyson is a wonderful video on my channel. Neil Tyson actually helped us more than he hurt us. By the way, I love the fact that there's only 3 media scientists, people that they put on camera in the world. One's from the US, Neil Tyson. One's from the UK, Brian Cox.
Yeah.
And one's from Japan, Michio Kaku.
That's right. Yeah.
And the rest and I do not count Bill Nye. Don't even bring his name up. I don't want to hear it.
Science guy.
Oh, dare you? He's so horrible. Okay, so Neil Tyson does this presentation to this school because he does university lectures all the time. He never does debates, and he was talking about the Red Bull jump. And I thought it was interesting because he should have been towing the line, but I think his handlers only take him so far because they want him to be authentic. And he said, the Red Bull jump where the Red Bull guy went up to 130,000 feet. He jumped out of the balloon, and they used a wide angle lens, right? And it was severely curved. And I've talked to producers before, and I said, why do you use that freaking image? I go, the Earth is tiny. If that was the case, I go, and producers came out. It's like, yeah, but it's a good shot, isn't it? I go, yeah, I suppose it's more dramatic. So Neil says that he criticizes it, and he goes, it was scientifically dishonest. He goes, at 130,000 feet, you can't see the curvature of the earth. He goes, no civilian will be able to see the curvature of the earth. And I go, well, that's interesting, because I, like nickname here, I have had thousands of people contact me and said, oh, I've seen it from an airplane, or I've seen it from the beach. And so especially airplanes, right? And I go, great. I go, take a still shot of it, hold some sort of, I think I've got one lying around here. Oh no. Yeah, crap. Where's my straight edge? Yeah, it's around there somewhere. Anyway, hold a straight edge up to it. Tell me you still see the curve, right? Then send it to me. Tell me you still see the curve. It's not that you see the curve, you want to see the curve. It's very Orwellian in that we're conditioned so much to see the curve that when we look out the window, like with anything else, it's like, oh yeah, there it is. Really? Is it? Because Neil Tyson, the most famous scientist in the world, no picking on Brian Cox, he says that you can't. So is he wrong? Because he's got a PhD in astrophysics. He's your guy. He's your go-to. So what? And again, not picking on nickname at all. It's not that she sees the curvature. She wants to see the curvature. I've had people say they've seen it from balloons, from mountaintops, and we're talking about the side to side here. I'm assuming we're not talking about the forward and back, because the forward and back, we destroyed that immediately. Once HD, the reason why we're even talking right now is because something changed 20 years ago, which was HD technology, which was we now had the ability to put HD technology into everything from cameras to smartphones. Yeah. And people, and I didn't even tell people to do it. They just started running to the beach and started shooting things off of the distance, which they couldn't do before. Because before, as you know, boat went off of the distance, you couldn't see it anymore. Now with HD, you could bring that boat back into frame, and you keep doing it again and again and again until finally the thickness of the atmosphere was the limit. And sorry if there's a follow-up question, because I'm anticipating one, which is, why can't you see forever on a flat, if the earth is flat, why can't you see Japan from California? Why can't you see France from New York? And why can't you see Mount Everest from everywhere? Because it's the highest place on earth. It's like, well, if you were a vacuum, you probably could. I mean, in fact, in the virtual world, you can. But because our atmosphere has a thickness to it, it gets more and more dense. It compounds over distance, especially with weather and atmospheric. I mean, this whole place was designed as part of the illusion, which is, barometric pressure and weather and humidity and wind and all that fun stuff. So what I mean is the limit to human sight, even with HD cameras, seems to be between 200 and 300 miles. And that's in perfect conditions. So yeah, sorry, nickname. You don't see it. You don't see the curve. You want to see the curve. And I get it. It's reinforcement. You've been told. I've had airplane pilots tell me the same thing, which is, remember, in the cockpit, it's different. In the cockpit, you're seeing a way bigger sweep, and they say, "Oh yeah, it looks flat." But in fact, the ones that come out, they say, "Yeah, it looks flat, but I know it's not, right? Because it can't be flat because it's a globe." And their brain tries to break out of the illusion, and sometimes they can, and sometimes they can't. So there you go.
I'm trying to remember the name of that airplane that came out. Was it the Blackbird or something? Where they had if the world was a globe, it would have to keep tilting its nose down.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, two things. So one of our spy planes, even though we don't have spy planes, we don't have spies officially, which I love about spies. Right? There is no spy network. There are no spies, but we have an intelligence network with people. The Blackbird, the SR-71, which was the coolest spy plane, we still use it. It went from inception to retirement basically without anyone even knowing, right? In fact, it was so well kept a secret that we ended up doing like a retirement party for it, where the generals are out there. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, this was our spy plane, right? And you're gonna have to drag me back in here in a second because I lost where I was. But the SR-70, one of the retired pilots, I love this. He does book tours, and he goes around and talks like, I was an SR-71 pilot. You guys want to touch me? I'm cool. Whatever. So he goes and he says, hey, when I was in Phoenix, I could see the beach of Los Angeles at 70,000 feet. I'm going, okay, all right, that seems a little far. And then he would say, dog. He would say, I could also see where Canada met the Rocky Mountains, where the United States met Canada. I'm going, well, that's way too far, right? But to your point, the SR-71 pilot would absolutely have been in the same boat as commercial pilots, which is if you're flying over a curved surface, you either have to nose down often or you have to nose up often. And by that, I mean, the faster you go, the more you have to nose down or nose up. And I have been on, I don't know, countless flights. I don't know how many flights I've been on. When you get up to cruising altitude and it is, there's no turbulence, that is the smoothest ride ever. Right? It is absolutely tabletop freaking flat. Nothing moves. And because everything's so sensitive on the airplane, if that plane even had to dip 200 feet, you'd know it. Right. And yet this plane, supposedly every plane has to either dip down or dip up hundreds of feet every minute forever. And again, SR-71, oh my God, he'd be in a constant either nose down or nose up, depending on how you're looking at it. In fact, one more thing, there's a video, I'll send it to you when we're done, which is there was one of the flight tracking systems. One of the few times I've seen this where they flipped it from the top down to the horizontal angle and showed planes going, all the planes in America going up and then going level and then going down, right? Which was cool in itself. Now, that's not the part that I thought was interesting. The part that I thought was interesting was because they were showing the whole United States, right? Thousands of miles from one end to the other. The United States in that model they were using was absolutely tabletop flat. Why would you do that? The raw data is curved. So why would you flatten it out? In fact, it would make more sense if you use curved data. But somebody either pancaked this or the raw data was flat to begin with. And again, the little things we miss things. The saying we can't see the forest for the trees. That's the case with most people, especially pilots.
Yeah. There was another thing I was looking at a while ago. It's when you go a flight to somewhere on the round Earth, it seems to go from one point down and then back up again. But then when you put it on the flat Earth, it's in a straight line. Right.
That was one of the things that, again, I can't remember the name of the UK guy that gave me the tip, but he said, look at the long haul flights. The long haul flights are anywhere in the southern hemisphere to anywhere in the southern hemisphere. So Africa to South America to Australia, and so on and so on. He goes, watch the routes. And wow, did we find some weird stuff right off the bat. He goes, first off, 90-something% of all the flights in the southern hemisphere are connecting flights. And many of them are double connection. And a whole bunch of them have to go north up to the equator and then back down. And I remember talking to it. In fact, it's on my channel still, where there was a travel agent in the southern hemisphere. She goes, you don't know how lucky you guys have it. She goes, in the northern hemisphere, you can get nonstops from anywhere to anywhere. And this is pre-pandemic, right? Yeah. And she goes, in the southern hemisphere, she goes, there are capital cities where you cannot get direct flights. You have to bounce off something else. It's like, it shouldn't be that far. It should just be across, the southern Atlantic Ocean. It should be across the southern Pacific Ocean. It's like, no, they take these weird arcs up north and back down. But if you overlay those flight paths on a flat Earth map, they turn into shallow dog legs or they turn into direct flights. David Weiss, and there's a guy out of Korea. Is it Korea? Japan. It's called Flat Earth, Banjo, Japan, Brazil, whatever. And he wrote this little book called, I think it was 16 Emergency Flights, where, again, you can only hide so much. But when there's an emergency, the flights get even weirder. I'll give you one example. So there was a flight going from the Philippines to Los Angeles, right? And a woman all of a sudden started going into labor, right, on the way. And you're looking at the flight path from the Philippines to Los Angeles. They're going to go straight over Hawaii, right? And it was like, Hawaii's really close. Like, oh, of course, they're going to Hawaii. No. They hung a hard left and went to Anchorage, Alaska. And it's look, I'm from this part of the world, right? It's like Anchorage, Alaska. There's not much there. In fact, if I had to go to a hospital, you go to Hawaii. That's where all the hospitals are. Anchorage, Alaska. We have to pay people to live in Alaska. But when you look at it on a flat Earth map, they were already next to Alaska. That's why they went there, right? There's certain things that the pilots know, but nobody talks about because they got bigger, other things to worry about, or they just don't want to mention it. And one of them is, when things get dicey, if you have to land, if you have to go off your flight path because of an emergency, they will direct you to things that do not make sense on a globe, but they make perfect sense on a flat Earth. So there you go. And by the way, the map we're talking about, you don't even have to remember azimuthal equidistant. It's a mouthful, so don't just. All you have to do is look up the UN flag, which is interesting, right? So the UN flag, totally legit, right? That's a map projection, and but we say, oh no, it's the flat Earth map, and they say, oh no, it's crazy. By the way, little side note, you probably already knew this, which is the UN flag is missing one thing. What's it missing? Antarctica. The whole continent is missing from the UN flag. It's like, why? It's huge. It's as big as Australia, probably bigger. Nope, nobody wants to. It's like, well, it's nobody owns it, and there's a treaty. It's like, so you're not going to put it on the map projection? Whatever.
Yeah, it's a continent.
It's a continent. It's not like the Solomons. Right? It's a whole freaking continent. And again, the treaty makes it. It's, by the way, on a little side note, it's the only unbroken treaty in the history of treaties. In Americans, we make treaties just to break them. Ask the Indians. Yeah. And yet, God, it's true. We do all the time. And the only unbroken treaty, and imagine making a treaty in 1959 saying that no corporation can set up shop in Antarctica, and then say it's not even up for review until 2041. It's like, well, yeah, that's not too far from now, right? 2041. But back in 1959, 2041, that might as well. That's so far in the future. It's 80 years. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We've got Nick Nimoy on the subject asking, what are your thoughts on Antarctica?
Whoa. Why'd my camera get all fuzzy? Hang on. Stop cam. Back. Why am I fuzzy? There, that's better.
There you go.
I know. I hate myself on camera anyway. Sorry, what are my thoughts on Antarctica?
Yeah.
I think Antarctica is exactly what we think it is. It's the outer marker of the world. It's the outer edge. You know, it's way, way bigger than anyone thinks. It surrounds the entire thing. The only people that are allowed down there are scientists and military scientists, and some military. Also look up if you want to look up some cool stuff, because kids ask this all the time, which is, what happens to the compass in Antarctica? It doesn't do jack in Antarctica. And as you know, if you remember your old school magnet tricks, magnet has two sides, right? And so the Earth should have a magnetic north and a magnetic south. Nobody talks about magnetic south. I've talked to Australian military that said, oh no, there is no magnetic south. They'll take you to what is the magnetic south, which is just this little silver post in the middle of the snow. And they say, oh no, this is it. This is it. No, doesn't do anything. All the scientists say, oh yeah, the compass is worthless down here. Absolutely freaking worthless. So no, Antarctica is a wonderful. Okay, I'll give you one more thing. Antarctica, you want to look up something fun? You already know this, I'm sure. Which is Operation High Jump, which is Indiana Jones was not just a movie. During World War II, everybody left the ice that was doing research down there, except for one group, Nazi Germany, because it's absolutely like the movies, in which Nazi Germany was willing to do anything to win the war, even if it was weird, right? So if Harry Potter's wand was rumored to be somewhere, they're going to go for it, right? The Ark of the Covenant, you bet they're going for it. Gollum's ring, yeah, let's find that. Whatever it is. And so if they heard there was something really mysterious happening down in Antarctica, yeah. So when everyone else was fighting World War II, they had stuff that was down in Antarctica. That's just matter of fact. And then right after World War II ended, once the Japanese signed the surrender stuff, surrender papers, Admiral Byrd led a full-blown carrier group with 5,000 infantry down on a scientific research mission down to Antarctica. Really? What was the big hurry? You literally went from the surrender thing. And the rumor was that they were there to root out the last of the Nazi bases. The follow-up speculation was rampant, right? All sorts of fun stuff that supposedly happened down there. What I like the story that the Germans asked whatever civilization was down there hanging out for asylum. And the group treated, again, I like the rules, which is they treat it kind of like what we do with high school dances here. I don't know if you do it there, which is if you leave the dance, you can't come back, right? You're not going to a drink in the parking lot and then come back to the dance. No. You're gone. That's it. And I say this because when in 1954, when Admiral Byrd went on television, we were so lucky to get that footage from the CBS affiliate. When he went on television, whatever problem was happening in Antarctica was done. It was finished. it was cleared up. So if there was something going on, he didn't even bring up Operation High Jump. He never really talked about it. So I think that whatever happened, they resolved it. And by 1954, it's like, nope, business as usual. And then, of course, they lock everything down. So,
right.
Schwabenland, yeah. Oh, yeah. Why? Again, the Germans pulled no punches. Come on. If you're trying to take over the whole world, why wouldn't you go after everything that was mystical? I mean, the Thule Society, given advisory notes? Heck yeah.
Yeah. And the fact that the SS was the occult arm, not the enforcing arm.
Yeah. No, they threw everything they had at it, and I get it. Look, all's fair in love and war. If you think there's something in Antarctica that can help out, whatever it is. I mean, there's the story. Come on, the stories go all the way back to where the only reason they had the advantage to take on everybody in World Wars because they found a Roswell. They had their own version of Roswell in the 30s, and they reverse engineered from that. And the ship didn't crash in the desert like it did in New Mexico. Here, it landed in like soft ground and was mostly intact. And they did what they did. Anyway, I mean, come on, they had jet planes at the freaking end of the war. They were getting surrounded, and they're still launching jet planes. And our guys are like, what the hell's that? Anyway,
and the anti-grav bell that they had.
Oh yeah, dude. If you guys have never watched it, and I'm talking to anyone who's listening, if you've never seen Man in the High Castle, watch that series. I'm surprised they made it, honestly. It was based on a series of books, which was that in another timeline, Germany won the war, and here's what happened. They divided the United States up in half, and Japan took the West Coast, and they took the rest. Little things like you guys remember what the Concorde is? Supersonic passenger jet, where the Germans because we can fly supersonic. You guys, people don't know. It's like, no, we can fly really fast to places with people. We just don't do it because of the sonic booms. But in the show, the Germans who the hell cares? It's like, you can't get back time. Who cares if it's noisy? Just freaking, you want to go from New York to Los Angeles in 2 hours? Absolutely, we're going to make that happen. Anyway.
So do you think that Antarctica has gates into obviously the different civilizations, or
remnants of them? Yes, which would make sense because the Antarctic Treaty made no financial sense to anyone. That was what got me more than long distance photography, more than gravity versus the vacuum of space. It was the Antarctic Treaty, which was, our world is based off of money and greed and power. Come on, we all know it. Corporate espionage rules are out there for laws are out there for a reason. And when you seal off a country, when Admiral Byrd goes down there and says the whole place is made out of money and people are going to be fighting over it for the next 100 years. There's oil, there's coal forever. There's uranium, there's minerals, there's all sorts of fun stuff. And then just a few years later, you lock all that down. And not only do you lock it down, here's the part that got me. It wasn't that you just locked it down, you made it to where no one could even talk about it, right? So Britain, after World War II, Britain was rebuilding. And I mean, come on, British Petroleum, they should have been running full page ads all the time. It's like, well, how great it would be for Britain to be in Antarctica, right? They're not even allowed to broach the subject. And that just screams national security. Meaning somebody went to the head of these corporations and said, okay, we know you want to. You can't. We're not going to tell you why. Only that it's under the guise of national security. You don't have clearance to talk about this. And once you retire or you leave your position, whoever comes in, you give them this card and you have them call us. Otherwise, we're going to come back here anyway and tell you. Because again, imagine that every oil and gas company in the world isn't allowed to touch that place or even protest it. No country has even said, oh, hey, no one's even begun to violate that treaty. Come on, text Michael, if they want to start fracking in your backyard tomorrow, they can do it. They can make that happen, right? Neighbors all day long, right? And that's not even for the good stuff. And yet these same companies aren't even allowed to talk about Antarctica. No, that screams cover up at the highest level, and which means that whatever's out there, and Cal, you know this, which is the big problem is if you let an oil and gas company in there, they have their own planes, they have their own helicopters, and somebody goes off course. It's gonna happen. Somebody goes off course and sees something they shouldn't and goes somewhere they shouldn't. That's a loose end you have to tie up. How many of those loose ends do you have to tie up before all of a sudden the oil and gas company, it's like, hey, we're missing a bunch of people. And so somebody in the Illuminati meeting, it's like, yeah, just shut it down. Just close it. Turn it all off. Turn it all off. Nobody gets in there. It's same thing. It's the bigger version of why there was no stars during the Apollo program, which is they were trying to work out the math. And it's like, because again, if the star constellations are in the wrong spot, some nerd's going to catch it. They're going to find it. It's like Belt of Orion shouldn't be there. It's date stamped. It shouldn't be there, right? And then it's over. So somebody says, no stars, just freaking no stars. And what gets me now is like Artemis. We're doing the new moon program, Artemis. Look it up if you get a chance. Artemis, supposedly went around the moon just recently, this year.
Yeah.
Was within 50 miles? No stars anywhere. And I'm going, okay, fine. 1969, you want to say it's an exposure setting? Fine. But this is 2023, folks. We got cameras on top of cameras on top of cameras. We have digital technology that rivals the gods, right? It's better on our own eyesight. And yet you're gonna tell me you went to the moon and back with hundreds of hours from multiple angles and no stars? So basically there's no stars in space. Fine, sure. General public's dumb. They'll believe it. Sorry. What else you got?
Any more questions?
Probably, but I can't think of any at the moment.
No?
Can't believe it. We usually sit and talk about this for hours as well. So
I know. I look. There's a lot of ground to cover, and I know your audience is probably. I'll give you a quick example. When we did Behind the Curve, the documentary, I sat in with some of the studio audiences in different film festivals, and most of them didn't even think it was real. Didn't even think it was a real movie until like 30 minutes in. I mean, literally thought it was like a parody movie. And then all of a sudden, once they realized that it's like, wait, these people are talking serious. Like, it's a thing. There's something on the internet. I did not even know it was there. By the time the movie ended, they were so overwhelmed that they just had questions and questions and questions and questions. So for anybody that's out there that, again, first off, do not take my word for it. Everything I just said during this whole thing, take it with a grain of salt, because I'm not here to convince you. I'm not here to persuade you. I'm here to just put ideas into your head and let them rattle around like a marble in a paint can. You will have to figure this out for yourself. Do your own research. Ask questions and figure this out on your own, because you're the one. The reason why our retention rate is so high, we got like a 99% retention rate, which is ridiculous. Because once you're in, you're in. It's very, very matrixy, red pilly. The reason is because you tore down the globe. We didn't tear it down. And if you tore it down, how are you going back? The line from Cypher in the Matrix, which is, ignorance is bliss. Why didn't I take the blue pill? Right. So, which is what I'll leave you with, which is, look, if you get up every morning and everything is awesome, thumbs up, and life is great, don't do it. And that's not reverse psychology. I'm serious. Don't do it, because if you go down this road, there is a point of no return. And once you get to that point, eventually you're going to send me emails. And again, it's all in fun, where they'll say, you ruined my life. I've only gotten like one death threat ever, and the guy was on a meth bender. But and I'm pretty sure he was from your neck of the woods, because he said he was going to stab me with a 24-centimeter knife. And it's like we don't do metric, so I'm trying to do. It's like, so what is that? It's like 9 inches, 8 inches, 9 inches. and then I thought he said, he apologized. He said he was hitting the glass, and I don't know anything about drugs, and so I go, oh, so you were doing crack, right?
Oh, hitting the glass, that means he was drinking.
No, he hitting the glass. No, you're right. In the UK, it could also be drinking, but over here, hitting the glass means meth.
Oh. Right, we don't really have meth over here.
Not really.
No. Well, not like that anyway. No.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he was on a meth bender, and he apologized, but whatever. It's like his real email. It's like, why would you stab me? Anyway, so my point is like, don't look at it just casually. You'll get to this point. There'll be this weird aha moment where once it clicks in, then everything looks different. everything. You'll look at every conspiracy that you ever thought of differently, and then you'll wonder. Then you'll be like, is anything true? Anything? Well,
and you'll fall down that like little rabbit hole.
Yeah,
just never ending.
Yeah, nobody climbs out of this one. It's really, really tough. But again, only because everybody hates it, including me. It took me 9 months. It may take some of the people listening 2 weeks. May take them 2 months. The longer you stare at it, the worse it gets. Sorry.
Anyway, it's got to that hour 30 minutes, so we're going to have to wrap it up here, unfortunately. But it's been really, really interesting. It's been amazing talking to you and hearing everything that you've got to say. Anyway, if anybody wants to find you, not to give you death threats, so where can they find you?
Don't find me. Don't look for me.
I promise.
The address is
no. The easiest way. Okay, yeah. If you want to threaten me with a 24-centimeter blade, contact Michael at no. Go seriously. What I don't. I'm not going to give out the. I'll give you two things really quick. The first thing is, look up the app. Answers a bunch of questions. It's called the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It's wonderful. I didn't develop it. I don't get a dime for it, but it's our official app, and it's absolutely wonderful. I'm on it. But if you want to find me, the easiest way to go down the rabbit hole is just type in Flat Earth Mark into any search engine and just see where it takes you. I honestly don't know where it's going to take you.
Well, I found you easy enough, so
there you go. I mean, I put all my contact information out there. My email address is out there, my phone number, my real physical address, all that stuff. And I do it deliberately. It's like, well, one, because I'm a guy. Women should never, ever do that. Never.
Unless you're crazy.
Oh my God, men are horrible. Like, yeah, if Kell decided to put her phone number out there, she'd have drunk dials almost immediately. People 3 a.m. and be like, "Hey, you seem kind of pretty."
That's all right. I'm used to that. As I told you what my job used to be, so
oh yeah,
all the time.
Bad. So yeah, that's it. Type in Flat Earth Mark and see where it takes you. And I hope your journey is mostly peaceful. But again, the first rule, which you guys know, which is in the clues, which is first rule of Flat Club, is do not talk about Flat Club. If you get into Flat Earth, do not start talking about it with your friends. Don't do it. And again, that's not reverse psychology. That is, don't be that guy, because otherwise, especially at work, otherwise you're going to be that Flat Earth guy.
Mm-hmm. And, the crazy one, apparently.
Anyway, my only request is whenever you post this, I'd love a link to it, and if you have access to the audio, I'd love a copy.
Yeah, Michael, I'm sure we could sort that out.
I can get it to Kell, and Kell can get it to you, or
okay.
If you put your email in private chat, I can.
You know what? I will
get it over
for you. Here, I'll type it in right now. M Sargent 23 at Comcast.net. Please send audio or links or both and naked pics. There we go. I actually typed that in. By the way.
Yes, he did.
I did.
I'm looking right at that.
What? I'm single. I can get away with that. I'm not on Tinder. Do you guys have Tinder over there?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good.
I could totally send him mole rats. He never declared what naked pics he wanted. Send him naked mole rats.
Nice. Anyway, anything else I can do? I can do for you guys?
No, that's it. But like I say, hopefully in the future we can get you back on again if you would be okay to do that.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's a one-time deal. No, it's fine. You absolutely just let me know. I'm more than happy to do it.
Brilliant.
So
thank you. It's been a pleasure having you on anyway.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. I appreciate it. Honestly, I love doing anything that's tied to the UK. I did not know anything about it. I fell in love with it when I was over there. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you ever come over here, just give us a shout. We'll show you around.
Oh, awesome. Very, very cool.
No problem. So anyway, we're going to say good night and thanks to everybody that put any comments in, and thanks to Matt for asking a load of questions, and thanks to Michael for being quiet for a change so we could get a good night, please.
Shut up, Michael. My God.
He's not usually this quiet, you know. But so I guess we'll see you next week. And Michael, I'll let you close the show.
All right. Thank you to the chat group. Thank you, everyone, and have a blessed day.
Long
Thank you for joining us at Paranormal Versus. Hope to see you on our next episode.